New York City's Democratic Socialist mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani is back in the streets of New York after his big Capitol Hill visit. And how did it go with Dems? Did they ask him about the controversial radical things he said pertaining to Jewish Americans? Or any of those wild ideas of communism for the city? Well, he was looking to woo House lawmakers who might have been skeptical, to say the least, about his far-left policies. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. So just a taste of that radical agenda. Rent freezes for certain apartment units, free public buses, city-controlled grocery stores. Now remember, that is the definition in terms when a government controls your food source like that at the grocery store. I've seen it in communist nations. It's not good. And he wants to nearly double the minimum wage, which crushes small businesses and even medium-sized businesses. As I've said, you've heard me say it, they'll just hire fewer people. And he wants to end cash bail. My goodness, we're already soft on crime in the city. And he wants to defund police. Democratic leaders like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have still not endorsed socialist Mamdani. Both are concerned that he has refused to condemn anti-Israel language. Watch.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use.
But do you actually condemn it?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me.
Why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things. So
was he lying? Because just a couple days ago, he said he's not going to say that term anymore, and he's going to discourage other people not to say it. So he says it's all about free speech. Well, you make the call. Is it really? Mamdani's father also has ties to a controversial anti-Israel group, and his past is pretty radical. He's posted offensive language like branding Israel an apartheid state, and he's called the Israelis, settlers. Republican Ohio governor candidate Vivek Ramaswamy was with me yesterday. Here's his take on what Mamdani means for the Dems.
There's two competing visions for the future of the country. One is a vision where we celebrate success and we embrace it. The alternative vision is one where we penalize success and celebrate victimhood instead. If you want to turn success into something that you villainize, great. The Democrats and Mamdani, they've paved that path. The voters deserve that choice. I don't think that's the choice that most voters are going to go for. And you mark my words, Harris, right now, if he wins this, and I think he probably will in New York City right now, that is going to be the defining rift for the 2026 midterms.
And he went on to say that that would be fantastic news for Republicans because they would be diametrically opposed to what he stands for. National correspondent Brian Yennis is in New York City with more. Brian.
And Harris, a notable number of those Democrats who appear skeptical of endorsing Zohran Mamdani are New York leaders. They also appear wary of attaching themselves to the Democratic Socialist rhetoric and his policies. New York leaders like the governor, Kathy Hochul, who has not endorsed Mamdani. You also have Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and congressional representatives Goldman, Suozzi, Gillen, and Torres. New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, though, is behind Mamdani. But when Fox News Digital asked AOC yesterday how Mamdani will win over these Democratic holdouts, she didn't offer a clear answer.
What do you say to some members who might be on the fence about some of his policies on it?
I mean, I always think that the best approach to these things is to hear it directly from the person themselves instead of, whatever the media static is or whatever it may be. If anyone has any reservations, I think it's important to meet and hear it straight from the source and make a determination from there.
Mamdani has yet to win over the Democratic Party's top two leaders, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, in part because of that refusal, Harris, as you mentioned, to condemn the phrase globalize the Intifada. Mamdani will meet, though, with Jeffries tomorrow here in New York City and Schumer at an unknown date.
Look, to what the globalized intifada means is really wrong and should be condemned, and I look forward to my discussions with Mr. Mamdani.
Well, I look forward to sitting down and talking to him. I didn't get involved in that primary election, and I don't know him well. We had a very good conversation the day after the primary. We agreed to meet.
Independent candidate and New York City's Mayor Eric Adams is holding an event today at City Hall where he'll announce the endorsement from 14 law enforcement groups and unions. It's notable, though, Harris, that just yesterday he was sued in federal court by his interim NYPD commissioner, a former commissioner, who accuses Adams of running the NYPD as a criminal organization. Harris?
Yeah, I looked a little bit at that. It's a 251-page document. He'll have to deal with that at some point. Brian, thank you. A new Wall Street Journal column is out, and here's the title: Mamdani and the Left's Alliance with Radical Islam. And here's part of it. Mr. Mamdani's immediate response to the October 7th terror attack did not mention Hamas and instead accused Israel of occupation and apartheid. Mr. Mamdani refuses to condemn calls to globalize the Intifada. And last month, Mr. Mamdani attended a comedy show with Mahmoud Khalil, that Algerian-Palestinian activist from Columbia University who the Trump administration has accused of hateful behavior and rhetoric that threaten Jewish students. All this may not make Mr. Mamdani an Islamist, but it does make him appear sympathetic to Islamists. Steve Hilton, Republican candidate for the governor of California, is with me now. So talk about that. You may not be one, but you sound like one, and you sound like you're into it, at least.
Exactly. And the history of his statements and the associations we've had tells us where his heart is. And now, because he wants these endorsements, he may say, well, I'm not going to use the phrase anymore. But we know what he thinks. We know who he associates with. And we know that this is where the energy is now in the Democratic Party. And Harris, I have to say, I've seen this movie before. I've seen it in the UK. This is what happened to the British Labour Party. They went off to the loony left, and they ended up nominating someone for their leader, Jeremy Corbyn, who was an anti-Semite, far left, wanted to nationalize huge parts of the economy, and it ended in disaster for them because people know it's always going to be a failure. What's shocking is that, okay, you've got some Democrats withholding their endorsement. Oh, let's talk to him. No one's standing up to this. No one, you don't see from the Democratic side a positive alternative to address people's concerns. Look, what's driving Mamdani's success is the fact that everything is a disaster in terms of economic opportunity in New York. It's so expensive. It's a nightmare. Of course, this is the worst possible response. It's more of the same policies that created those problems. But there's no positive alternative coming from the Democrats, no mainstream alternative. Only the Republicans have an answer to these problems.
Well, Curtis Lewa joins me in a few minutes. I'll get that answer.
Exactly.
Or get him to at least lay out what he knows so far. A new op-ed argues Mamdani won because of the collapse of patriotism among affluent white liberals. And here's a quote: Democrats' left flank can chalk Mamdani's rise to either his own inspiring message or widespread dissatisfaction with the establishment. But these overlook the best explanation, one with more far-reaching implications. Many Americans, and especially wealthy, highly educated ones who live in cities like New York, view their country and the values underpinning it as something to be ashamed of rather than to be proud of. Your thought?
I'm just partly heartbreaking, partly infuriating as a new American, someone who's so proud to be an American. I think it's the ultimate honor in the world to be an American. And for these people to just take it for granted, look down their noses at this incredible country, everything that we've achieved, everything we represent, the ultimate expression of everything that we want to aspire to in the world. And it's borne out by the data as well. We saw it the other week, didn't we, with that poll? We had, over 90% or so of Republicans proud to be an American. The number for Democrats down 30-odd%. It's absolutely appalling, but it's all part of this left-wing ideology that denigrates America and all the good things that we represent.
Well, look, after intense backlash and fear-mongering over President Trump's tariffs, some headlines may show more about all of this that people really need to know, like the truth. And you see that phrase right there. It stands for Trump always chickens out. So the piece says, forget taco. Trump is winning his trade war. Another. Who's taco now? Trump reaping billions of tariff revenues while other countries are backing down. And then last month, the U.S. raked in $27 billion from tariffs alone. That's more than 300% of a jump from the year before, a record high since data collection began. President Trump here.
The numbers were very good, very much inside the margin. So we've had no inflation. All we have is we're making a fortune. We are taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. You saw we had a surplus of $25 billion last month, which we haven't had in many, many years.
Those tariffs are also bringing foreign companies to the U.S. Here's an example. Samsung is now building washing machines in South Carolina. Billionaire Republican donor Ken Langone, who was furious about the tariffs, has come around after seeing the success.
I am sold on Trump. In fact, I'll say this. I think he's got a good shot at going down in history as one of our best presidents ever.
That is a real turnaround because you didn't want to vote for him.
I tell you the reason. I want to tell you, I'm a believer. What I'm seeing happening is absolutely nothing short of a great thing.
Ken Langone not having an out-of-body response, having an inside-your-wallet response.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so great is you can't resist. There's a sense of swagger and hustle and ambition about this second Trump presidency. I mean, every week you're seeing good news about the fact that America is now the place to be. As the president puts it, we're the hottest nation in the world. And as a business guy, he understands that. But he's making America the place you want to be, the place you want to invest. That's why the tariffs are working, because everyone wants to do business with America. And when you come from a position of strength like that, economic strength, then the tariffs work. And it's also what President Trump always said, reciprocity. The fact that he's putting on the tariffs, other countries aren't putting them back, shows what he said was true all along, that it's been unfair up till now. He's now making it fair.
Well, and it seems to open doors for other things, too. I mean, you cannot discount the G7 summit and the military spending that those NATO countries are now not just willing to do, but going to do. And their first effort will be to help out with the weaponry that we'll supply, but that they have to pay for the continued war Russia
from
on
our
Ukraine.
Companies,
right.
From our businesses.
Exactly. So it works all the way around. And now the headlines hit. I don't know if liberals read all that much. That's probably not fair. Steve Hilton, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.